The All Black podcast is powered by our official cloud software partner, SAP, helping our teams in black become the best run teams in sport. To listen to this episode and all the All Black podcasts, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts. This is the All Blacks podcast.
Kia ora whānau, welcome to episode 13 of the All Black podcast powered by SAP. Women's Rugby World Cup got off to a flyer. 3 games, Eden Park, pop concert, full house, and a great game of code between Australia and the Black Ferns. To talk about the opening day and the anatomy of a World Cup, tournament director Michelle Hooper, welcome to the studio.
Kia ora, thank you for having me.
Look, we've got that opening weekend out of the way. We're a week into the tournament. Is your head above water a little bit? Like what's going on at the moment, or is it still very much all go? We've turned the phone off from the studio because I know that thing's rung already about 6 times since you've been here. Have we settled down a wee bit? Is the weight off the shoulders?
Definitely. I think we started with an absolute cracker of an opening match day.
Absolutely.
And match day 2 up at Whangarei. So we were all of our team were just blown away by the fact that we got there and what we were able to showcase, and most importantly, putting on a world stage that those incredible Wahine Toa of women's rugby totally deserve. And I think now we really zoned in on Monday on what are the tweaks that we need to make to for each of those match venues, and also we had to stand up Waitakere Stadium for the first match out there this Sunday. So people came back down out of the clouds pretty quickly. But we did take time to reflect on Monday afternoon about breaking the world record for one Rugby World Cup. Smashing attendance records with a new total of 34,325 people in venue.
Wow.
We broke the record for selling out Eden Park for the first time ever for women's rugby. And also the highest attended match for women's sport in New Zealand. Wow. So lots of records broken on match day 1, and as you say, like a pop concert, triple header match day and a festival events. We were just so rapt that we were able to deliver that, and I think the feedback we've had from people that were in the venue on that day was it was an incredible experience and something really new and different for the sports fan, which is exactly what we wanted. We wanted the experience in stadium to replicate the feeling you get from women's rugby, which is loads of aroha, incredible camaraderie, celebration and success, and real warmth. And so, from all the feedback we've had, and we've had really great fan experience feedback on surveys, and it's all, to people taking the time to write to tell us what a great experience they had.
You did all of that in spades. It was such a good weekend. We're going to cover a lot of that, but first, a few warm-up questions so we get to know you a little bit better before we get stuck into it. What about you? Who was your favourite sports stars growing up?
I've got a real mix-mash. Mark Todd, because I always wanted to be I was a horse rider. He was awesome, and we also featured in the Bell Tea commercial out of Pukekohe. Sarah Ulmer, I totally loved bike riding, and she's just truly inspirational female leader and incredible athlete. Sir Peter Blake, America's Cup and everything he was able to do and bring the America's Cup home to New Zealand. And Andy Dalton was our local hero because his kids went to my school and we grew up in the Bombay Hills. So we just in awe of him as a All Blacks captain for 10 years, I think.
What a bunch of great New Zealanders. I love that. Michelle, when you're driving into work, and you're doing that a lot at the minute, what's on the Spotify playlist? What break things up for you before you get into the hustle and the bustle of being the tournament director of the Rugby World Cup?
Well, I catch the ferry, so it's on my ferry playlist, so it's quite long, but I must say I've just got Rita Ora on repeat at the moment. Yes. It's kind of like my, just reminds me of the opening match day, and we'd been trying to, make sure we knew all the lyrics to the songs before the tournament, before it started. So she's constantly on repeat, and I'm pretty bad at that. I'll just get something that I like and just keep playing it over and over, and it's kind of like helps you get in the zone for what you're trying to do. But also, if I'm not doing that, then Tropical House is a new genre of music, which somebody got me into, but I really love the vibe of Tropical House beats, so just that on the Spotify playlist.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to look that up. And not a bad commute, is it? Getting a ferry from Waiheke Island into Auckland Central, that's not the worst way to start the day.
No, it's the best way to start and end the day. And I just clear the inbox, but also just debrief with myself on the way.
Yeah, totally. Three guests for dinner at your place on Waiheke. I'd say they'll be lining up to get over there for a feed. Who would they be and what would be on the menu?
Right now, I think definitely Kendra Cox-Edge, Ruby Tui, Glenn Ashby, Emirates Team New Zealand. Yeah. He's obviously going for a land speed record over in Australia at the moment, and he's just an awesome human. And I think we'd have eye fillet on the bonfire, and he's really good at flipping the meat on the barbie. So, and Ruby and Kendra, because I'd just love to debrief their experience after this Rugby World Cup and how they've found it all, and just have a really good chat around the bonfire.
Absolutely, a couple of great personalities that we're getting to know more and more at the moment. And actually, a little plug for Waiheke. If you on the Sunday for lunch, where would you be taking everyone? Because there's some fantastic spots over there, isn't there?
There is, yeah. On the Sundays for lunch, we'd probably be heading to the Heki. Obviously, it's our rugby club favourite, and all of my kids, they obviously contribute heaps to the rugby club, so we were often at the Heki. Or if we're heading to the beach, it'd be Charlie Farley's or Oyster Inn if it was just me and Hamish.
Hot tips, I love that. Look, how does one become the tournament director for the Rugby World Cup? Like, how do you get into that sort of role? Because it's not a bit like being an accountant or a lawyer or, some of the more traditional things that people do out there to earn a crust. Like, it's a pretty unique role.
It's a huge honour and a privilege, and I think having had a career in sport management, it is a bit of a unique journey, and it started with the America's Cup back in 1996, as I said, run 95 when they run the America's Cup, brought it home in the Welcome Home Parade. At the moment, the light bulb moment for me was what they could do, bringing events to New Zealand, showcasing sport, and also showing what New Zealanders do on the world stage, and I think that's what really spins my wheels is just representing New Zealand and showcasing our people and our place. That really resonates with me, and I think for this event and for the women's game, like being able to then put my key learnings, having worked in high performance sport and international events for the last 20 years, mostly in men's sport, but being able to transfer those skills into delivering a spectacle for women's sport and women's rugby. It's been a incredible journey, but it definitely feels like all of the skills that I've picked up over those 25 years were for this moment in time. And selling out Eden Park last Friday was just the icing on the cake, because I always felt like I wouldn't be happy if there was one seat, spare, and we managed to sell that out on Friday. And because I just felt like it was just everyone needed to be there for the Black Ferns and all of those incredible rugby teams that took part in match day 1. But also just to honour the legacy of the black jersey here in Aotearoa, with the Black Ferns having won that title 5 times offshore, and this being their first home Rugby World Cup. In the moment that Hinawahi Mohi sung the national anthem a cappella, so no music, and the crowd sang with her, you could just see the emotion in the Black Ferns' faces. But also it was kind of like the righting of all of the wrongs, I guess, of not having just enough of a spectacle around women's rugby to date, and just that this is the new benchmark going forward. So really creating a cornerstone of change around visibility of women's sport, people turning up to support them and celebrate them. And I think then, when you watch the game and you saw all of those players, the spectacle of women's rugby is brilliant. The heaps of tries, all of the teams competing in the first weekend all got points on the table. Nice. Fijiana, it's their first Rugby World Cup, and they managed to go really well against England and get some good runs on the board. And that's the, a symbol, I think, of huge amount of effort, that crowd support, pushing them along, and there are lots of great fans there for like the likes of Fiji and South Africa as well.
Totally, it was so good, and I wanted to. Something I've heard you talk a little bit about before is you've worked on some pretty big tournaments, and actually there's, unfortunately, there's a real element of professionalism in those and commercialisation. But I heard you say for this, everyone just wanted to help out, everyone to get stuck in and make sure this thing went really, really well. That had to be an awesome environment to work in, where people just want to roll up their sleeves and make sure this thing absolutely hums.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things with delivering a Women's Rugby World Cup, the 2017 iteration of the tournament was delivered at a university campus in Dublin, Ireland. So New Zealand Rugby's bid was about supercharging the women's game. So when you think about supercharging, in my mind, it just has to be massive and big, and and just everything's well. And when we started, it was the opening match day was going to be at Waitakere Stadium with 5,000 people. So in the first 6 months, I started in February 2020. It was all about moving that opening match day to Eden Park. And I think we talked about just before. The stars aligned a little bit and giving us more time, like COVID and the postponement. That was, we'll probably talk about that soon. But anyway, the main thing was just, taking what we had and then making it as good and as big as possible. And I think rugby fans probably don't realise that tickets to women's rugby have only been sold 5 times.
Is that right?
Since I've been in the job, since November 2020 was our first ticketed match for New Zealand Rugby. So there's no history of sales data. When you normally say, what will the fans do? It's like, well, we don't know who the fans are, so we need to go out and find it, research it, test it. So all of it was quite an unknown. So there's a massive leap of faith, and there's also this real important role of painting the picture of what it's going to be like and what you're encouraging people to come to. I think, really accessible ticket prices, from $5 for a child, as little as $10 for an adult, and $20 for an adult at Eden Park matches. That's really helped us sell the picture. But then every single person that jumps on board and says, I want to be there, I need to take part in that, and then spreading that, feeling through their friend groups and talking about it at the barbecue, all of that makes a huge difference to this tournament.
Let's talk a little bit about that opening day. Like, firstly, like you say, when you made that decision to move it from, Waitakere to Eden Park, like, that's awesome, and it's about, right, here we go, we're going to go big here. But all of a sudden, like, wow, that's a change of scenery. Yeah, like, what was the process to get along to there and getting a big star to come in and be part of the opening show, backing yourself to sell, 30, 40,000 tickets, having 3 matches like on one day. There was all sorts of elements we talk about. I loved the poise. I loved the poise. I loved the feeling of the day. Like, how did that all come together? And was it challenging, or did you keep getting little wins along the way that made you think, yeah, we can do this?
I'll just tell you one word. I mean, challenging is an understatement. Though the things we've had to deal with in 2.5 years have been like nothing I've ever dealt with in major international events. And, obviously planning for most of this in a pandemic.
Yeah.
When you think that the COVID protocols, the COVID regulations really only dropped away 3 or 4 weeks ago, to a degree that you're delivering live sports events and hopefully not having that COVID hesitancy in the crowd. And people forget really quickly, what we've all just been through.
Totally.
But our whole tournament planning and, as you saw with the Cricket World Cup, it was completely mad by having to deliver, no crowds, and then by the end they could finally get a crowd. But that journey helped our journey, in terms of what cricket did and where we are and how we're going to get to where we're going. Hopefully, we've still got masses of matches to go, semi-finals and finals at Eden Park. But I think that the number one thing was keeping focused on the vision and what we needed to achieve and not letting go of that. And then fighting hand and foot for every bit of money that we could get, and what every incremental difference could make. And when the tournament was postponed by 13 months, there were some massive shifts, which was World Rugby came out and said there's going to be 5 days rest between matches for athletes from a player welfare perspective, which was gold. Then we could change. We were meant to have midweek matches, but we could change all the games to Saturday and Sunday games. So you didn't have 6 games taking place on one day in 2 different venues. You've got Eden, Auckland venue and a Whangarei venue on different match days. So there were some key changes there. And then we were able to access some new funding, which helped us keep going, helped us bring in more staff, helped us do some more events and activations. And one of the big things for us was we need to create awareness about this tournament, because how are we getting out there that there's this Women's Rugby World Cup on? We need more money and we need more of everything. And we just continued to have those conversations with people that cared and, get the funding. So, the government have been incredibly very helpful for us, really vested in women's sport and seeing that shift. And when behind the scenes how much of an influence sports has in communities and how, it really helps support people but also can transition people into leadership roles and things, it's a great investment, anything in sport. So we're hoping to reward that by delivering great Rugby World Cup matches.
Who's the team? How many are there? Who's making those awesome decisions around turning that opening day into a festival, like recruiting, pop stars to come along and play? The poise in the crowd created such an awesome atmosphere. The family, the way the kids and mums and everything were integrated into the day, like, just made it a completely different type of rugby event here. What's the brainchild of all that stuff? Who's, is it all you, Michelle? Or there's some other people involved?
Definitely a huge brains trust in all of our team, and everyone contributes. I think creating an environment where everyone can feed in. I think the big players there were, when we made the decision to move to Eden Park from Waitakere Stadium, we needed a big impact in terms of revenue, so our ticket numbers had to increase to pay for that. In order to do that, you had to be able to draw in a crowd. So then we were like, well, we need a headline artist, because that will help. The risk area was we don't know the market, so if we can get an artist to come and perform, that will create another thing that we can market to attract people. Because we know that once people watch women's rugby, they want to stay and they want to come to more matches, but it's just getting them in the door to start with. And then securing a headline artist was quite hard going, because you're needing someone that's, and it's a long way to come to New Zealand, so getting a one-off. And obviously there's lots of great connections, personal connections with people to help us get Rita, and we had a lot of conversations before that happened with other artists. But, Rita Ora was the perfect person for the moment, and her relationship with Taika Waititi and the connection to New Zealand was super special, and also she really believed in what she was supporting. In addition to that, a lot of us in our team are mothers, and we were just like, well, if you're going to watch triple header rugby match days, you need something to keep the kids there. So we've got an amazing kids zone at the venue where the kids go, and my husband said to me, I couldn't get the kids out of a kids zone. And I was like, that's fine, just sit on the beanbag and watch the TV watch the rugby on the TV. So there's something for everybody. And then the festival, there's a Maori and Pacifica festival entertainment program that runs throughout every match day. Same thing to keep people entertained off the field while we're waiting for the teams to warm up and get back on the field.
Yeah.
And all of that just contributes to a really great vibe. People can stay for a long day. There's lots of activity on the concourse. There's DJs mixing beats on the concourse as well. So, there's something for everyone in venue.
I'll tell you what too, like as a rugby fan, like as a regular rugby watcher, one of the things I really enjoyed, and I don't know if you're getting this feedback from staff and all the different people that you chat to, but like the game's really flowed, and I think because, perhaps it's the professionalism of the men's game is there's a lot of cards in the men's game, there's a lot of looking up at the screen and making decisions because, for whatever reason, we've created this environment where everyone just feels like there's so much pressure on these things, so you've got to get them right. But it creates a lot of stoppages in the game. When I sat down and watched the opening day of the Women's Rugby World Cup, the game's just flowed. They just really flowed, and I really enjoyed it in that regard. Is that the type of thing you're hearing from people now that that's all done?
Definitely, and I think one of the audiences obviously is, the traditional male rugby watching fan, and, we want to say, Robert's got his hand up, say, this is a great rugby spectacle, and what I hear a lot in the business in New Zealand rugby is that it kind of goes back to, where people, more free-flowing rugby because they've got more ability just to play the game that they want to play. Yep. And, even the feedback from the citing commissioners were that there wasn't many things that were cited, and that, we've also got an all-female refereeing team, so between those two combinations, there's a lot of free-flowing rugby, a lot more tries, a lot of points, and, ball in hand for a lot of the game. So it's a great rugby spectacle, and it's different to the professional game you're seeing with the men at the moment, and in a really good way. And I think one of the things I love is just watching as many of them score tries as possible because they've all got a unique, moment in time where they just go and, rip down the field and do it their way, and it's really exciting to watch.
And I know you're Switzerland. I know you're a neutral
as
tournament director. But, when the girls were a couple of tries down, surely you're a little bit nervous. Like that cheering on the top at the end of the day was perhaps for the Black Ferns to get the win. And to their credit, they were able to dig in and had a fantastic last sort of 50 or 60 minutes and got the chocolates. But you were a little bit nervous there when Aussie got off to a flyer?
I think fortunately I was running around enough with a lot of things going on in the venue that I was just across, so I wasn't, although I knew they were down, but then I think by the time I tuned back in, they were coming up, pretty quickly, so in terms of the result, so I was like, okay, that's fine, we're going to get there. And mostly I heard that because I was walking around the concourse areas and doing different zones, and I could just hear the crowd going absolutely mental. And I was like, yes, we've scored again, though I'm neutral because I'm Switzerland,
yes,
but
of course.
Certainly for a Rugby World Cup in New Zealand and the fans coming out in their droves, having the Black Ferns go well throughout the tournament is certainly helpful of having a really incredible Rugby World Cup. But we've got some giants playing this weekend. The England-France game on Saturday night at Northland Event Centre. That's the huge of the teams to beat playing each other. It's going to be a great spectacle. And Black Ferns playing Wales on Sunday. Yep. Another great one for me is like the Fiji South Africa. It's the last game of the day.
How good are the Fijiana supporters?
And South Africa, both supporters. They had so many fans in the stadium cheering for Fiji and South Africa, and that's the last game of the day on Sunday.
Awesome.
So hoping that they get and also those teams are quite well matched. So there should be some great. All the teams playing this weekend are pretty well matched. So there's going to be some great scores.
Good round coming up. Like you say, you took the job in was it February 2020 or something like that. Looking back now, and you probably even had the chance to do this because you're right, you're in the throes of the major event itself at the moment. But have you been able to look back a little bit and look at what have been some of the biggest challenges over that 2-year period? I know there's one big challenge, but and how you've been able to overcome them, probably with a bit of pride for yourself and the team, no doubt.
So much pride. I can't talk about the pride. I think that we've got incredible stars in our team, and I often say I think that the people that are in our team have come to us. Say like we're doing something higher here in terms of the people that have come in. And I don't. We can talk about some of the individuals, but some former players, international players in our team. People that set up rugby at our communications director when she first joined. She said she wanted to play rugby as a teenager. There wasn't anywhere to play for her in New Zealand. She ended up setting up her own team up in one of the North Shore clubs. She went overseas and played for one of the England clubs. She came back and played in the Farah Palmer Cup. But her aspiration when she was young was to be an All Black. And I hear that all the time in women's rugby. They didn't have to see the pathway to be a Black Fern. And what I can see in this shift now is that our tamariki in New Zealand see the pathway to be a Black Fern. And, women's rugby is going to go gangbusters. It already is. In our club at Waiheke, 46% of the registered players are girls. And just now that they can see that pathway right the way through to the international stage, it's so exciting. I think that I can't remember what the question was, but...
No, just just the challenges you've overcome, and I think you're right, and I mean you're right. We're hearing a lot at the moment, but if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I know, like down where I live in the Bay of Plenty, there's an all-girls team, Alataki girls team, and it's coached by Pango and Portia. So now
amazing.
those girls, who are coached by their parents, have now got a pathway, or are seeing a pathway to go through and do, what the parents do, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And so, 100%. We obviously focus on the Black Ferns being the All Black podcast, and that's our team, and we're all supporting them, and we're starting to learn so much about them, and not just the players, but the players that sort of blazed a bit of a trail. Mel Robinson and Anna Richards, we're hearing about them. We're hearing about the story of Laurie O'Reilly. We're hearing about the story of why Wayne Smith has got so involved and is so passionate about this job. It's fantastic. But is there any other stories or things of note from some of the other teams that are here? Because that's the part we don't know much about, we know England are good, we know France are good, we're starting to learn a little bit, but there's a whole lot of, hey, they lost the game by 60 points at the end, but my God, there's a couple of good tries from the Fijiana side there at the start of the World Cup. Is there any stories out there that are, probably get you up every day and get you going again,
Totally. I think Fijiana is a great case in point. This is their first Rugby World Cup. They're incredible at sevens. You saw them take the field on Saturday and own it for quite a few minutes of that game, and bring that real energy. I think, Fiji is obviously a bit of the sweethearts of rugby.
Yeah.
Gorgeous players. A lot of their families came over for that opening match from Fiji, and you think that's a massive undertaking to come and support them. But what it meant to them to play here at Eden Park, and you can't underestimate for all of these teams, what they tell us all the time is that playing rugby in New Zealand is the holy grail of rugby for a player. To play a Rugby World Cup in New Zealand as a rugby player, holy grail of rugby, but to play at Eden Park, the home of rugby internationally, and that you can't underestimate what that means to all of these individuals in each of these teams. And all of them have similar stories of resilience and strength and courage, and all the people that told them that they shouldn't play rugby, or that they're female and they can't play rugby, or those stories are just coming out all the time. So I think one of the common things is just taking time to hear their stories, but also one of the greatest appreciations we can do for these female players is to know their names, know the positions that they play. And then what I always love around the All Blacks is that everyone that calls into the commentary, the talkbacks is, they should have played so-and-so because of so-and-so. So imagine if you can get down to that level of detail by the final, that people know the Black Ferns by name, they know which players should be there and why, and actually from a technical assessment perspective of their skill, that would just be such a great level. It would show we'd come so far as a country.
And we are, and obviously I'm I love my footy, so I'm watching a lot of it, but there's the good and the bad of all that too, in the sense, not the bad, but the I suppose the realities of these big tournaments is someone like Les Elder, former captain, absolute champion, Wahine Toa from the Bay of Plenty, isn't able to be there, but fantastic to see her commentating and doing the haka with the girls on the opening day. That was pretty emotional. Even Aisha, little pocket rocket on the wing, she's an absolute superstar, but Ruby, Portia, on the wings, absolute stars. So she's going to have to fight her way in there. So we're starting to know some of these girls and starting to critique the team and getting involved in some of the selections, so you are creating that in spades, which is awesome. I wanted to talk a little bit about the rest of the tournament. So we've got the opening day done. Well done. I can see just your passion for the event and getting it off the ground, and how proud you were of the team to get it done to such a high standard. And you've set it up so well. What do we look like for the rest of the tournament? You talked a little bit about some of the great games we've got going on this weekend. One thing is I think it's top two teams from the pools go through. How do we decide the other two for the quarterfinals? Who does it maybe, if fingers crossed, if our girls, the Black Ferns, can go through and win the remaining of their pool games, who might they be playing, and what does the rest of the tournament look like?
Great, we've got 8 match days left. So all match days are Saturdays and Sundays.
Let's talk in event speak. We've got 8 match days
left, and there's triple headers for all the pool stage matches. Quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals are all double header match days.
Awesome.
So you get loads of rugby, bang for your buck, and entertainment. We've got obviously Shapeshifter playing for the semi-final at Eden Park, and we've got Benny playing for the final at Eden Park. So that's an in-venue experience not to be missed. So you need your tickets in order to experience that.
Yes.
In terms of what's coming up, we've sold out Waitakere Stadium on Sunday sold out 2 weeks ago, and that's a real testament to that. That's the smaller model. That's the 5,000 capacity or 4,500 capacity, as my ticketing manager would say, stadium model, which we said we need bigger stadiums, and that was the model that 2017 was, and the bid was won off by New Zealand Rugby. So really interesting to see this massive wave of interest in women's sport already, and that that you have to have bigger stadiums to get the crowds. We're expecting that up in Northland for the Black Ferns match and the the quarterfinals match to be played in Northland. We're expecting quite big crowds up there for those two games, and then obviously Eden Park and for the semi-finals and the finals, anything's possible. So if the Black Ferns go through to those games, we would love to think that we could sell that out again, and that everybody, as many people as possible, can come and have that Eden Park Stadium experience, but don't miss out on getting your tickets. But a little bit of it explained around the quarterfinals, because it's a little bit complicated to get your head around. Basically, the top teams from each pool will go through to the quarterfinals, and they basically it's done on seeding. So the top 8 teams are seeded. So the 1, 2, and 3 from each of the pool. It's a little bit tricky to explain, actually. The top ones going through from each pool will be ranked, and they'll be 1, 2, and 3 seed. The second place people in each pool will be the 4, 5, 6, and then the best of the rest will be 7 and 8. Then first seed will play 8th seed, second seed will play 7th seed, etc., etc. So the Black Ferns, depending on where they go through, or that they go through, and then where, that will determine who they play.
And that 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6, is that done on a points differential or something like this?
Yeah, points for and against.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it, too? Because that means every single game counts in terms of, if you need to create a differential, you need to create a good score to make sure, that you are either 1, 2, or 3 in the best possible you can be. So that's a good thing to know as you kick on and watch the quarters. Watch the quarters. Yeah, as I say, hopefully the girls can go through and get into the best spot. Our partners at SAP pride themselves on powering the best run teams. Michelle, any success factors stand out for the teams and the environments that you have been involved in from an event perspective? And I want to ask it from an event perspective, a major event perspective, because so often we have players and they talk to their team environment. I want to know a little bit, like, you're in a team, and what's been some of the success factors for the Rugby World Cup team?
Totally. I think I've been part of many teams, and I love watching teams. Like, team dynamics for me is really important, and this is the first team that I've outright led.
Yes. And
I'm really proud. For me, it's all about optimising the skills of the people in your team and creating an environment where they can each excel. So we really have a open forum in terms of bringing your best self to work, bringing your best ideas, and, I'm open to everyone's suggestions, and then we sit down and flesh them out. And, I see my job as a leader to resolve issues. So people will come, they'll bring me their ideas, I'll say yes or no, this is what we can do, and we work it out. And that's how we've created all this gold as well, is that people have brought their best selves to work, they've come with all their creative ideas, we've openly looked at everything and fleshed it out. There's no kind of ego in here, it's all just about bring what you've got and let's make it work. One of the stars in our team, Arizona Ledger, they're all stars, but one of them, she's our social digital content specialist. She came up with the Champions concept, the Champions video, which went global. It got over 1 million views. Brilliant. It was all about getting in and supporting women's rugby. So our events team, the Rita Ora, how all of that match day came together, incredible. They wanted to create a Sevens Warriors Love Child venue experience. So it's like, we can do that. We can do all of these things, but we're doing it on a shoestring. So it's a lot of Kiwi ingenuity. And the main thing for me is believing in the people that you've got there. You've got the best people. Just empower them to do their job really well. Hear them, be there for them when they've got issues to resolve. And I was really calm on match day 1 because I knew we had the best people and I knew that they knew their jobs, and it was just, they would come to me if there was a problem, so just leave them to get on with the job. And same with World Rugby. For me, we've got a great relationship with World Rugby, New Zealand Rugby do, and I've worked with them for a long time in a lot of different capacities. So for me, it was like maintaining that trust and confidence with them, not doing anything that loses that trust and confidence. So maintaining that at all times, really open dialogue, and then they've got faith in our ability too. So as long as everyone's feeling like they've got the issues on the table, they understand what's happening, and you're working towards a common goal, the world's your oyster. But keeping people calm and focused, and just keeping that vision board up there. Is that part of the vision? Yes or no? And I learnt that from working for Team New Zealand years and years ago when I was in my 20s. Doesn't make the boat go faster. Keeping the vision simple, right. And then you can just ask yourself, well, is what you're focusing on making the boat go faster? Is what we're working on going to sell out Eden Park to create a platform for the Wahine Toa of women's rugby to excel? Yes or no? And then it's pretty straightforward.
How good. Michelle, thank you so much. I realise you are phenomenally busy lady, but I can tell that you are the right lady for the job. Your passion comes through in spades, and you've done a fantastic job so far. What a great opening weekend. We've got so much more in front of us, and I have no doubt at all that come those big games at the end of the tournament, that they're going to be well supported as well. Well done so far, and good luck for the rest of the tournament.
Thank you very much. Anyone who doesn't have their tickets, rugbyworldcup.com/2021.
Ideal. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
The All Blacks podcast is powered by our official cloud software partner, SAP, helping our teams in black be the best run in sports. Hosted by Rob Dunne in the Hargrave Street studio. Produced by Carl Thompson from Blue and Ginge, the podcast producers. Video editing by Mac Leesburg, graphics by Western Design, content advising from Andy Burt, and commercial manager for the podcast is Valeska Hoth. Follow the All Blacks podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere you get your podcasts.